It was a crisp autumn morning at SpaceX's Starbase facility in Boca Chica, Texas. The air buzzed with excitement as hundreds of new recruits filed into the sprawling conference hall. The walls gleamed with holographic displays of Mars colonies and the shimmering SpaceX logo reflecting a future that once seemed impossible. This wasn't just another orientation, this was a gateway to the stars. The chatter quieted as Gwynne Shotwell, the president of SpaceX, stepped onto the sleek stage. With her usual authoritative grace, she welcomed the recruits. But this time, there was a twist. An unusual guest speaker was about to take the stage, someone no one had expected. Ladies and gentlemen, Gwynne began, her voice echoing through the hall. Today, we have a special guest who represents a generation ready to shape the future. Please welcome our keynote speaker, Mr. Barron Trump. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Barron Trump? The 19-year-old son of former President Donald J. Trump? What could he possibly have to say to a room full of some of the brightest engineers, scientists, and visionaries in the world? The door swung open, and there he was, tall, poised, and confident. At 6 feet 7 inches, Barron's towering frame was impossible to miss. But it wasn't just his height that commanded attention, it was his presence. Dressed in a sleek black suit with a subtle SpaceX pin on his lapel, he exuded an air of quiet intelligence that surprised many. Seated in the front row was Elon Musk himself, a man rarely impressed by anyone outside the realm of scientific genius. His fingers tapped absently on the armrest of his chair, his expression unreadable as Barron stepped up to the podium. "Thank you, Ms. Shotwell," Barron began, his voice smooth and measured. "And thank you, Mr. Musk, for the opportunity to speak today." A hush fell over the room as he continued. "When I was first invited to address the new generation of SpaceX innovators, I asked myself, what can I say to people who are already working on the greatest human endeavor of our time? What can I offer to the minds who will take us to Mars and beyond?" He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. The recruits leaned forward in their seats. Even Elon, known for his impatience, tilted his head slightly, curious to see where Barron was going. "I realized," Barron went on, "that the story I want to tell you isn't just about rockets or Mars. It's about vision, the kind of vision that dares to see beyond the horizon, even when the world tells you it's impossible." He glanced toward Elon Musk. "Mr. Musk, people called you crazy when you said you wanted to colonize Mars. They laughed when you talked about reusable rockets. But you didn't listen to them, you listened to your vision. And today, SpaceX stands as proof that impossible dreams are just problems waiting to be solved." A flicker of a smile crossed Elon's face, a rare sign of approval. Barron's voice grew stronger. "My father used to tell me, if you're going to think big. But thinking big isn't enough, it takes courage. Courage to fail. Courage to be misunderstood. And most of all, courage to keep going when everyone else gives up." He gestured toward the audience. "Every one of you sitting here has already made a choice. You chose to be part of something bigger than yourself. You chose to work toward a future where humans aren't confined to one planet. That takes courage, and I admire that." The room was silent, captivated by the unexpected eloquence of a young man they had underestimated. "But there's another part to this story," Barron continued. "Vision and courage alone aren't enough. You need responsibility." Elon's brow furrowed slightly as Barron pressed on. "We aren't just building rockets. We're building the future of humanity. Every decision we make, every success and every failure will shape the lives of people we may never meet. We have a duty to think beyond ourselves. Because if we don't, who will?" A ripple of agreement passed through the room. Some of the newer recruits exchanged glances, visibly moved by his words. Barron paused, letting the silence stretch. And then, with a soft but firm voice, he said, "The future isn't written in the stars. It's written by the people who refuse to accept limits. And each of you, whether you know it or not, are writing the next chapter of human history." The room erupted into applause. Even Elon Musk, notorious for his cool demeanor, clapped, a slow, deliberate gesture that hinted at genuine respect. As the applause died down, Barron offered one final thought. "So, as you begin your journey here at SpaceX, I'll leave you with one question. What future will you write?" With that, he stepped back from the podium, his expression calm but resolute. For the first time in a long time, Elon Musk felt something unexpected, a sense of being challenged. And as the applause swelled again, louder than before, one thing became clear. Barron Trump had just made history. As Barron Trump stepped away from the podium, the room buzzed with an energy that hadn't been there before. Conversations broke out in hushed tones, and a few of the senior engineers exchanged surprised glances. No one had expected him, a teenager mostly known for his famous last name, to deliver such a powerful and thought-provoking speech. Elon Musk remained seated, his hands steepled under his chin, watching Barron with a mix of curiosity and calculation. He had seen many speakers come and go, scientists, astronauts, even world leaders, but this was different. Gwynne Shotwell took the stage again, her voice steady but charged. Thank you, Mr. Trump, for those inspiring words. We'll now transition to our Q&A session. Mr. Musk, would you like to open the floor? Without hesitation, Elon stood, adjusting his blazer. Actually, he said, his eyes fixed on Barron, I have a question for Mr. Trump. A ripple of anticipation swept through the audience. It wasn't every day that Elon Musk himself questioned a guest speaker. Barron, however, didn't flinch. He nodded politely, welcoming the challenge. You talked about vision, courage, and responsibility, Elon began, his voice calm but piercing. But those are just words until they're tested by reality. What happens when the reality of failure meets your ideals? What happens when everything you believe in is on the verge of collapse? For a moment, the hall held its breath. It was a question designed to expose weakness, to see if Barron's polished speech could hold up under real scrutiny. Barron tilted his head slightly, considering the question. Then, with the same calm confidence he'd maintained throughout, he answered. I understand what you're asking, he said. It's easy to speak about big ideas when things are going well. But it's in failure, public, painful failure, that your character is truly tested. He paused, scanning the room before locking eyes with Elon. I'm not standing here pretending I know what it's like to land a rocket on a drone ship in the middle of the ocean. But I do know what it's like to be underestimated. To have the world reduce you to your last name. And here's what I've learned, when failure comes, you have two choices, you let it define you or you let it drive you. A murmur of agreement ran through the crowd. Even Elon's expression softened slightly. Barron continued, his voice gaining a sharper edge. When you were told that reusable rockets were impossible, you didn't quit. When the Falcon 1 failed 3 times in a row, you didn't walk away. You pushed forward because deep down you knew the mission was worth more than your pride. He took a step closer to the edge of the stage. I'm not here to impress anyone, he said, his tone intensifying. I'm here because my generation is inheriting a world that's changing faster than we can imagine. And we have two choices, accept the limits placed on us or break them. Elon let the silence hang for a beat longer before offering a rare, genuine smile. Well said, he admitted. But tell me, Mr. Trump, what do you think is the next limit that needs to be broken? Barron didn't hesitate. The human mind, he answered. The response caught even Elon off guard. He leaned back slightly, intrigued. Explain, he said. Barron's eyes glimmered with a quiet intensity. We've broken the sound barrier. We've touched the moon. We're on our way to Mars. But technology is only part of the equation. The next frontier isn't just space, it's how we think. Creativity, innovation, empathy. If we can unlock the full potential of human intelligence, human imagination, there's no limit to where we can go. A slow wave of applause began again, this time from the SpaceX engineers themselves. These were people who had dedicated their lives to pushing the boundaries of possibility. And for the first time, they saw someone from a different world, a political dynasty, speak their language. Elon gave a thoughtful nod. Interesting perspective, he said. Perhaps we should talk more after this. It was a simple statement, but in the world of SpaceX, it meant something profound. Elon Musk wanted to hear more. As the Q&A session continued, Barron fielded questions with a calmness and clarity that left even the most skeptical engineers impressed. He spoke of the need for interdisciplinary collaboration, how fields like neuroscience, artificial intelligence, and even philosophy must converge if humanity wanted to become a true multiplanetary species. And through it all, Elon kept watching him, not as a political figure, not as the son of a former president, but as an emerging thinker who might just have ideas worth exploring. When the session finally concluded, Gwynne Shotwell returned to the podium, her face alight with pride. Thank you again, Mr. Trump, for your time and insights. You've given us much to think about. As the audience stood and applauded one final time, Elon Musk made his way to Barron. Extending his hand, he said, I meant what I said, we should talk more. I have a feeling you're not finished yet. Barron shook his hand firmly, his smile steady. Neither are you, Mr. Musk. And with that, the unlikeliest conversation at SpaceX's new recruiter orientation had just begun. As the applause faded and the crowd began to disperse, Elon Musk motioned for Barron Trump to follow him. Without a word, the two walked through a sleek glass corridor, leading to a private lounge overlooking the sprawling SpaceX launch pad. The faint hum of distant machinery and the gleam of a Falcon Heavy rocket bathed in the Texan sunlight added a surreal edge to the moment. Elon, known for his restless mind and sharp curiosity, broke the silence. You know, he began, pouring himself a glass of sparkling water. I've heard a lot of speeches over the years. Politicians, scientists, astronauts. But you're different. Barron, unfazed, settled into a leather chair across from him. Different how? You're not selling an agenda, Elon replied, his eyes narrowing slightly as if he were peeling back the layers of Barron's mind. Most people who step onto that stage want something: fame, influence, validation. But you seem like you actually care about the future. Barron leaned back, his posture relaxed but his tone thoughtful. Caring about the future isn't optional anymore, he said. Your work isn't just about rockets. It's about survival. If my generation doesn't think beyond today's problems, there may not be a tomorrow worth saving. For a moment, Elon simply stared at him, as if recalibrating his assessment. He hadn't expected this level of depth or passion from someone so young. You've thought about this a lot, Elon said, his voice softer. Why? A shadow flickered across Barron's face. I grew up watching people chase power for the sake of power, he admitted. My last name gave me a front row seat to how much people will fight to hold onto the world as it is, no matter how broken it gets. But I also know that real change doesn't come from politics. It comes from the people who are willing to take risks to make the impossible possible. Elon leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. You know, he said, his tone more candid, there aren't many people who see the world that way. Most people are trapped in small thinking. You're talking about the big picture, the survival of the species. Barron smiled faintly. Isn't that what you're doing? SpaceX isn't just about going to Mars. It's about giving humanity a second chance if we mess things up here. Elon chuckled, a rare sound. You're smarter than people give you credit for, he admitted. So, tell me, what would you do if you were in my shoes? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Barron didn't hesitate. I'd invest in minds, not just machines, he said. You've already built the tools to get us to Mars. Now you need to find the people who can imagine what life on Mars should become. Not just engineers, but artists, philosophers, and storytellers. People who can shape a civilization, not just a colony. Elon's expression shifted from curiosity to intrigue. It was as if Barron had articulated something he had sensed but never fully voiced. Interesting, Elon murmured. Most people just tell me to build faster rockets. Barron laughed lightly. Faster rockets won't matter if we carry the same old problems to a new planet. What's the point of starting over if we don't change how we think? For the first time, Elon Musk felt something unusual, a spark of genuine excitement. He had built a company that defied gravity, but maybe this kid, this unexpected voice, was pointing toward a bigger frontier. You're not wrong, Elon finally said. And maybe we should do something about that. A new kind of silence settled between them, not the awkward stillness of strangers, but the electric pause that precedes something big. Barron raised an eyebrow. What are you suggesting? Elon's eyes gleamed with the familiar flicker of a new idea forming. A think tank, he said slowly. A group of the brightest young minds, not just scientists, but visionaries from every discipline, working together to design the future of human life beyond Earth. Barron considered it carefully, his analytical mind already racing ahead. If you're serious, he said, then it can't be another corporate project. It needs to be independent, free to ask the hard questions and challenge even your assumptions. Elon laughed quietly. You don't hold back, do you? Would you want me to? Barron shot back with a grin. For the first time in years, Elon Musk felt the thrill of being challenged, and he liked it. All right, he said, standing up and extending his hand. Let's make it happen. You'll help me build it. Barron rose, meeting Elon's gaze without a flicker of hesitation. Deal. As they shook hands, the weight of the moment settled over them both. It wasn't just a handshake, it was the beginning of something the world had never seen before. And as Elon Musk and Barron Trump stood there, forging an unlikely alliance, one truth became clear. The next chapter of human history wasn't just about leaving Earth, it was about redefining what it meant to be human. The weeks following the SpaceX event moved at lightning speed. Word of Barron Trump's speech and Elon Musk's unexpected collaboration with him spread like wildfire across the tech and media worlds. Pundits speculated endlessly. Was this a publicity stunt? A play for political relevance? Or was there something deeper happening behind the scenes? Inside SpaceX's headquarters, however, the noise of the outside world didn't matter. What mattered was the work, and for Elon and Barron that meant building something no one had ever attempted before. They called it Project Horizon, a think tank that would bring together the most brilliant young minds from around the globe to reimagine human existence beyond Earth. But it wouldn't be a traditional research group. Elon insisted on a flat structure, no bureaucracy, no corporate red tape. And Barron? He pushed for diversity of thought. We don't need just engineers, Barron argued during one of their late-night planning sessions. We need artists, psychologists, anthropologists, people who can imagine how a Mars colony could thrive socially and culturally, not just survive technically. For perhaps the first time in his career, Elon found himself listening instead of leading. And to his surprise, Barron's vision began to expand his own. Within a month, recruitment for Project Horizon began. SpaceX received thousands of applications, but the final selection process was anything but ordinary. Candidates weren't just tested on their technical skills. They were asked to solve ethical dilemmas, to envision how governance might work in an off-world colony, to debate whether humanity had the right to terraform Mars or whether it should remain untouched. And at the heart of it all, Barron Trump played a central role. Despite the skepticism he faced initially, especially from older scientists who viewed him as nothing more than a privileged teenager, Barron's sharp intellect and calm leadership began to win people over. One particular moment shifted everything. During a high-stakes brainstorming session, the team was grappling with a fundamental problem: how do you maintain human identity and creativity in an environment where survival requires strict order and efficiency? A heated debate erupted. Some argued that on Mars there would be no room for artistic expression, only the cold, hard reality of survival. Others feared that a rigid society might crush the very spirit that made exploration meaningful. As the room grew tense, Barron finally spoke. "You're all missing the point," he said quietly. The room fell silent. Even Elon looked up from his notepad. "Survival is the floor, not the ceiling," Barron continued. "If we only focus on what's necessary to stay alive, we'll fail before we even begin. Mars isn't just an engineering challenge. It's a human challenge. If we can't bring beauty, curiosity, and meaning with us, then what's the point of going at all?" The simplicity and truth of his words hung in the air. It wasn't the kind of insight you found in textbooks. It was the kind of wisdom born from someone who had spent his whole life navigating a world where appearances often mattered more than substance. From that day on, no one questioned Barron's place at the table. Elon, ever the pragmatist, recognized something in Barron that couldn't be quantified. It wasn't just intelligence, it was vision. And for a man who had spent his career pushing humanity to dream bigger, that was a rare and invaluable thing. But not everyone was thrilled. Behind closed doors, some members of SpaceX's executive team worried that Barron's growing influence might distract Elon from the company's core mission. Media outlets speculated wildly, suggesting that Elon was grooming Barron for a future leadership role. And, unsurprisingly, political commentators had a field day questioning whether this partnership hinted at future ambitions far beyond Mars. Barron, however, remained unfazed by the noise. His focus stayed on the work, on the big picture. One night, as he and Elon pored over candidate profiles for the final Project Horizon team, Barron leaned back and asked a question that caught even Musk off guard. "What happens if we succeed?" he asked. Elon raised an eyebrow. "Isn't that the goal?" Barron shook his head. "I mean really succeed. What happens when humanity becomes multiplanetary? How do we stop the mistakes we made here from following us out there?" For once, Elon didn't have an immediate answer. And that was when Barron proposed something that no one, not even Elon Musk, had seriously considered before. "What if Mars isn't just a colony?" Barron suggested. "What if it's a chance to rewrite everything? No legacy systems. No inherited inequalities. A blank slate for human society." It was a bold idea, one that danced dangerously close to the line between ambition and idealism. But in Elon's world, dangerous ideas were the only ones worth pursuing. "I like it," Elon said after a long pause. "Let's figure out how to make it happen." And with those words, Project Horizon became something much larger than a think tank. It became a blueprint for the future of humanity itself. 6 months after that fateful SpaceX orientation, Project Horizon was no longer just an idea, it was a movement. The world watched with growing fascination as the initiative gathered momentum, attracting some of the most brilliant young minds from across the globe. Engineers from MIT, philosophers from Oxford, artists from New York, all united by a single question. What kind of world should humanity create beyond Earth? And at the center of it all stood Barron Trump, the unlikely figure who had transformed from a quiet enigma into the face of a new future. On the day of Project Horizon's official launch event, the world's attention turned to SpaceX's sprawling starbase facility. More than 1,000 guests, including world leaders, scientists, and media figures, gathered in an open-air pavilion overlooking the latest Starship prototype. Millions more tuned in via live stream, eager to hear from the two men who had ignited the world's imagination, Elon Musk and Barron Trump. Elon took the stage first, his speech as sharp and unconventional as ever. He spoke about the urgency of becoming a multi-planetary species, reminding the audience that relying on Earth alone was like keeping all your eggs in one fragile basket. He outlined SpaceX's ambitious roadmap to Mars and the breakthroughs that had brought them to the edge of this new frontier. But when Elon stepped aside and introduced Barron Trump, no one could have predicted what would come next. Dressed in a simple black suit with no notes in hand, Barron's calm presence commanded immediate attention. For a moment, he simply stood in silence, letting the weight of the occasion settle over the crowd. Then he spoke. "My whole life," he began, his voice steady but charged with emotion, "I've been surrounded by power, people who fight to hold onto it, people who fear losing it. But today isn't about power. It's about something much bigger." He paused, scanning the audience as though speaking directly to each person. "We stand at the edge of a new era, not just for science, but for humanity itself. For the first time in history, we have the ability to become more than earthbound creatures. We have the chance to build a future that isn't shaped by the mistakes of the past, but by the possibilities of tomorrow." The crowd was transfixed. Even Elon, who had heard countless speeches on space exploration, found himself leaning forward. "But here's the truth," Barron continued. "Rockets alone won't save us. Technology won't define who we become. Character will." A ripple of surprise swept through the audience. This wasn't a speech about engineering, it was about values. "When we go to Mars," Barron said, "we aren't just exporting our technology. We're exporting our ideals. And if we bring the same systems of greed, division, and short-term thinking with us, we will fail. Not because the technology isn't good enough, but because we aren't good enough." His words hung heavy in the air. Cameras zoomed in, capturing the intense focus on his face. But he added, his voice rising with conviction, "We also have a choice. We can make Mars more than just a colony. We can make it a promise to be better than we've ever been before. A promise that we won't just survive, we'll thrive. And that promise starts with us right here, right now." For a moment, there was complete silence. Then the applause erupted, wave after wave of thunderous clapping that echoed across the Texas desert. But Barron wasn't finished. "I know some people still think I don't belong here," he said, his tone softening. "They wonder why someone like me, a kid who grew up in the shadow of power, should have a voice in this conversation." He looked directly at Elon, a quiet smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. "The truth is, I've seen what happens when people hold onto power for its own sake. And I know this, the future belongs to the dreamers who are bold enough to share it. That's why Project Horizon exists, not to serve a corporation or a government, but to serve humanity's best vision of itself." At that, the applause swelled again, but Barron's next words cut through the noise like a blade. "If we want to build a new world, we must deserve a new world." The simplicity and truth of that statement sent chills through the crowd. Even Elon Musk, a man not easily impressed, felt something stir in him. When Barron finished and stepped back, Elon walked to his side. Without hesitation, he extended his hand. Barron shook it firmly, and in that handshake, the world saw the future in real time. As the event concluded and the media scrambled to capture every moment, Elon turned to Barron with a rare smile. "You know," he said quietly, "I built rockets because I wanted to leave Earth. But maybe, just maybe, you're the one who'll make sure we don't bring Earth's worst mistakes with us." Barron, ever composed, smiled back. "Let's make sure we do it right," he said. And with that, a new chapter in human history began, one where technology and vision, power and purpose collided in a way that would shape the stars themselves.